Hey, so we are starting the January 2nd. It's day 2 of the New Living Translation 1-Year Chronological Study Bible. Life outside of Eden is hard, and it requires faith in God's promises. Abel's offering of an acceptable sacrifice in worship echoes the promise and sacrifice made by God in the previous story in Genesis 3:15 and 21. Cain comes to God on his own terms. God accepts Abel's sacrifice and warns Cain to do what's right. Instead, Cain kills Abel. God replaces Abel with Seth, preserving his promise to Eve regarding her offspring. There are 2 ways of navigating life outside Eden. Seth's descendants worship the Lord by name, while Cain's descendants live outside the presence of God and are characterized by violence, murder, and sexual brokenness. Apparently, the 2 lineages intermarry, and we find that in Genesis chapter 6, and the whole world becomes corrupt. Only Noah walks with God by faith, so God instructs Noah to build an ark and sends a flood to judge the rapid spread of sin among his image bearers. So we have the story of Cain, Abel, and Seth, and we're beginning today in Genesis chapter 4, verse 1. Now Adam had sexual relations with his wife Eve, and she became pregnant. When she gave birth to Cain, she said, "With the Lord's help, I have produced a man." Later, she gave birth to his brother and named him Abel. When they grew up, Abel became a shepherd while Cain cultivated the ground. When it was time for the harvest, Cain presented some of his crops as a gift to the Lord. Abel also brought a gift, the best portions of the firstborn lambs from his flock. The Lord accepted Abel and his gift, but he did not accept Cain and his gift. This made Cain very angry, and he looked dejected. "Why are you so angry?" the Lord asked Cain. "Why do you look so dejected? You will be accepted if you do what is right. But if you refuse to do what is right, then watch out. Sin is crouching at the door, eager to control you, but you must subdue it and be its master." One day, Cain suggested to his brother, "Let's go out into the fields." And while they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother, Abel, and killed him. Afterward, the Lord asked Cain, "Where is your brother? Where is Abel?" "I don't know," Cain responded. "Am I my brother's guardian?" But the Lord said, "What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now you are cursed and banished from the ground, which has swallowed your brother's blood. No longer will the ground yield good crops for you, no matter how hard you work. From now on, you will be a homeless wanderer on the earth." Cain replied to the Lord, "My punishment is too great for me to bear. You have banished me from the land and from your presence. You have made me a homeless wanderer. Anyone who finds me will kill me." The Lord replied, "No, for I will give a 7-fold punishment to anyone who kills you." Then the Lord put a mark on Cain to warn everyone who might try to kill him. So Cain left the Lord's presence and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden. Cain had sexual relations with his wife, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Enoch. Then Cain founded a city, which he named Enoch after his son. Enoch had a son named Irad. Irad became the father of Mehujael. Mehujael became the father of Methushael. Methushael became the father of Lamech. Lamech married 2 women. The first was named Ada. The second was Zillah. Ada gave birth to Jabal, who was the first of those who raise livestock and live in tents. His brother's name was Jubal, the first of all who play the harp and flute. Lamech's other wife, Zillah, gave birth to a son named Tubal-Cain. He became an expert in forging tools of bronze and iron. Tubal-Cain had a sister named Naamah. One day Lamech said to his wives, Ada and Zillah, "Hear my voice. Listen to me, you wives of Lamech. I have killed a man who attacked me, a young man who wounded me. If someone who kills Cain is punished 7 times, then the one who kills me will be punished 77 times. Adam had sexual relations with his wife again, and she gave birth to another son. She named him Seth, for she said, God has granted me another son in place of Abel, whom Cain killed. When Seth grew up, he had a son and named him Enosh. At that time, people first began to worship the Lord by name. From Adam to Noah. This is the written account of the descendants of Adam. When God created human beings, he made them to be like himself. He created them male and female, and he blessed them and called them human. When Adam was 130 years old, he became the father of a son who was just like him in his very image. He named him Seth. After the birth of Seth, Adam lived another 800 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Adam lived 930 years, and then he died. When Seth was 105 years old, he became the father of Enosh. After the birth of Enosh, Seth lived another 807 years, and he had sons and daughters. Seth lived 912 years, and then he died. When Enosh was 90 years old, he became the father of Kenan. After the birth of Kenan, Enosh lived another 815 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Enosh lived 905 years, and then he died. When Kenan was 70 years old, he became the father of Mahalalel. After the birth of Mahalalel, Kenan lived another 840 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Kenan lived 910 years, and then he died. When Mahalalel was 65 years old, he became the father of Jared. After the birth of Jared, Mahalalel lived another 830 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Mahalalel lived 895 years, and then he died. When Jared was 162 years old, he became the father of Enoch. After the birth of Enoch, Jared lived another 800 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Jared lived 962 years, and then he died. When Enoch was 65 years old, he became the father of Methuselah. After the birth of Methuselah, Enoch lived in close fellowship with God for another 300 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Enoch lived 365 years, walking in close fellowship with God. Then one day he disappeared because God took him. When Methuselah was 187 years old, he became the father of Lamech. After the birth of Lamech, Methuselah lived another 782 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Methuselah lived 969 years, and then he died. When Lamech was 182 years old, he became the father of a son. Lamech named his son Noah, for he said, "May he bring us relief from our work and the painful labor of farming this ground that the Lord has cursed." After the birth of Noah, Lamech lived another 595 years old, and he had other sons and daughters. Lamech lived 777 years, and then he died. After Noah was 500 years old, he became the father of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So now we switch to 1 Chronicles chapter 1, verses 1 through 4. The descendants of Adam were Seth, Enosh, Kenan, Mahalalel, Jared, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, and Noah. The sons of Noah were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now we're going back to Genesis chapter 6, and we're going to read about Noah and the flood. Then the people began to multiply on the earth, and daughters were born to them. The sons of God saw the beautiful women and took any they wanted as their wives. Then the Lord said, "My spirit will not put up with humans for such a long time, for they are only mortal flesh. In the future, their normal lifespan will be no more than 120 years. In those days, and for some time after, giant Nephilites lived on the earth. For whenever the sons of God had intercourse with women, they gave birth to children who became the heroes and famous warriors of ancient times. The Lord observed the extent of human wickedness on the earth, and he saw that everything they thought or imagined was consistently and totally evil. So the Lord was sorry he had ever made them and put them on the earth. It broke his heart. And the Lord said, I will wipe this human race I have created from the face of the earth. Yes, and I will destroy every living thing, all the people, the large animals, the small animals that scurry along the ground, and even the birds of the sky. I am sorry I ever made them. But Noah found favor with the Lord. This is the account of Noah and his family. Noah was a righteous man, the only blameless person living on earth at the time, and he walked in close fellowship with God. Noah was the father of 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now God saw that the earth had become corrupt and was filled with violence. God observed all this corruption in the world, for everyone on earth was corrupt. So God said to Noah, I have decided to destroy all living creatures, for they have filled the earth with violence. Yes, I will wipe them all out along the earth. Build a large boat from cypress wood and waterproof it with tar inside and out. Then construct decks and stalls throughout its interior. Make the boat 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high. Leave an 18-inch opening below the roof all the way around the boat. Put the door on the side and build 3 decks inside the boat, lower, middle, and upper. Look, I am about to cover the earth with a flood that will destroy every living thing that breathes. Everything on earth will die, but I will confirm my covenant with you. So enter the boat, you and your wife and your sons and their wives. Bring a pair of every kind of animal, a male and a female, into the boat with you to keep them alive during the flood. Pairs of every kind of bird and every kind of animal and every kind of small animal that scurries along the ground will come to you to be kept alive. And be sure to take on board enough food for your family and for all the animals. So Noah did exactly everything as God had commanded him. So in the actual printed copy of this book, there's an understand the story. We're done with January 2nd, so if you're out of time and you need to turn it off, then go ahead and turn it off. But understand the story says this. God tells us about himself. In the beginning, God. The opening words of the Bible announce God's desire to make himself known. The Bible is a book about God, about his ways, and about his people. Without his self-revelation, we could not know him, discern his ways, or understand ourselves. Amazingly, God gave us this book precisely because he wanted to be known and loved, and to make his love known. The truth of God's existence is obvious. Even though we cannot see God, we can see his handiwork, through which he demonstrates his eternal power and divine nature. I was going to try to change this to where it's just me now. There we go. And his divine nature. The earth and the sky reveals his invisible attributes. All of creation proclaims his existence. This general revelation testifies to all humanity that God is powerful, orderly, and purposeful. God has also revealed himself throughout history through his miracles, through his word, and through Jesus, special revelation, so that humans would know his goodness, love, and truth. Moses records the detailed account of the creation of the universe during their 400-year stay in Egypt. The Hebrews, God's chosen people, learned the Egyptian narrative that gods and goddesses governed the natural and supernatural worlds. God gave Moses this record of creation to dismantle the false Egyptian narrative and replace it with the truth. Truth starts with God himself. From the beginning, he reveals that he exists. He demonstrates his power by simply speaking. When he speaks, things happen. Nothing becomes something. God establishes himself as the judge of good and evil. He evaluates what he makes and deems it good. And he immediately introduces boundaries, separating light from darkness, sky from earth, land from water, day from night, and aquatic life from aerial life. He also sets boundaries in reproduction. All animals and plants reproduce offspring of the same kind. God makes humanity in his image, morally, spiritually, and intellectually, and gives humans the ability to reproduce more image bearers, along with the right to reign over his creation. He blesses his image bearers and anticipates all of humanity's needs before they even have needs. God makes orderly, integrated systems within the boundaries he created, testifying further to his own creativity and design. The heavenly lights rule the times and seasons. The reproductive process provides ongoing life. And the rule of humans provides order and care for God's creation. As he concludes this creation event, and before he elaborates more on the crown of his creation, humanity, God evaluates everything he has created as very good. The creation event also reveals God's goodness. His design of the universe displays his desire for the flourishing of his image bearers and ensures their safety and provision. He places Adam in a beautiful garden loaded with resources. He fashions Adam to appreciate beauty and enjoy bounty. He gives Adam a complementary companion to share in the beauty and the bounty, to reign with him in the garden over all the earth and its created order, and to extend God's kingdom. God's goodness in creation lays the foundation for the prohibition he gives regarding the tree of knowledge of good and evil. In the midst of abundant provision, he delineates one prohibition. If you eat its fruit, you are sure to die. Though Adam has never seen death, God makes the word understandable and promises that death would follow eating from the forbidden tree. The prohibition is for their good, as are all the boundaries established in creation. Would his image bearers trust his goodness and exercise the rule over their appetites? Sadly, they listen to God's enemy, the serpent, who seeks to be the dominating voice that humanity hears. And they question God's goodness, doubt his word, and eat the forbidden fruit. Sin enters their hearts. They feel shame at their nakedness, fear that causes them to hide from God, and guilt that leads them to blame others for their own faults. But God, in his goodness, seeks them in their hiding. His questions expose their sin, but his mercy provides both a promise of future restoration and a picture of that restoration. God promises that an offspring of the woman would crush the head of the serpent. The rest of the biblical story tracks God's goodness displayed against the backdrop of humanity's rebellion. The refrain, "Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good," from Psalm 136:1, could be applied to each era of the Bible. God's goodness is displayed in the patriarch era when he chooses a man from an idolatrous family to found a nation. The Exodus era narrates the goodness of God as he liberates his people from slavery and cares for them in the wilderness despite their frequent rebellion. God's goodness is celebrated in the conquest era as he splits the Jordan River for his people and gives them the land promised to Abraham and his descendants. In the Judges era, God works behind the scenes and raises up a family from Judah through whom the redemption story continues. The goodness of God is paraded in the kingdom era through a king after God's own heart and through his glory settling on the temple built by Solomon. God's goodness disciplines his people and calls them to repentance in the divided kingdom era. His goodness sustains his people during the 70 years of Babylonian captivity, and then he brings his people back to their land and prepares them for the coming of the Messiah. In the silent era, God's goodness is displayed as he preserves both his people and his written word. Finally, God's goodness is on ultimate display in Christ Jesus, who bears guilty humanity's penalty in his death on the cross and then bursts out of death's tomb and ascends to heaven, where "Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good" plays on gloriously for all eternity. So that concludes the second day, January 2nd, of the 1 year chronological Bible.